Good morning. Thank you so much. That's a lovely welcome, and a particular welcome to you if you're new. And if you're watching online, welcome to you and a happy Easter to you all. As we gather each week, one of the things that we love to focus on is what actually God has to say to us. And we believe, as well, millions and billions of people around the world, that actually God speaks to us through the Bible. So I'm just going to read a very short piece of the Bible from a book called Mark. It's Mark's account of Jesus' life. It's going to come up on the screen. And the theologians who know more about this than me, they believe actually the source, for Mark was around, he was a contemporary of Jesus, but they believe the source of what I'm about to read is St. Peter, the Apostle Peter. Peter, the one that denied Jesus, the one that said, I'll go with you to death, Jesus, before Jesus was crucified. I'll go with you to death. I'll never deny you. And then, sadly, 3 times he denied the one that he loved. And it's this Peter that theologians and scholars believe is the source. So if you want to look it up on your device or in old school Bible like I've got, you can do that. But it's going to come up on the screen. So I'm going to read from Mark chapter 16. And this is one account of what happened historically approximately 2,000 years ago. This isn't fable, this is history. This is one account of what happened. But I'm going to read just from the verse before. So Jesus was crucified and buried, and it says, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where he was laid. They saw where he was buried. Then in chapter 16 it says this, when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Salome, bought spices so they may go to anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they're on their way to the tomb. And they asked each other, who will roll the stone away from the entrance to the tomb? But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed, he said. You're looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He's not here. See the place where they laid him. But you guys go tell his disciples. It doesn't actually say you guys. That's like not in the original. I added that. I realized that as I read it. It doesn't say guys. You can't believe a word I say now because I'm just like making it up as I go along. But you dudes. Doesn't say that either, actually. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you'll see him, just as he told you. Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. In Matthew's account, it says that they were filled with joy and yet terrified. It says here, trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. And then it stops. Do you know the interesting thing in this account, there's an account in Matthew's Gospel, good news about Jesus, there's an account in Mark, which we've just read, there's an account in Luke, which Jim read from earlier, and there's an account in the Gospel of John, St. John. In this account, it just suddenly stops. And if you've got a Bible, it says that the most original manuscripts don't have the bit that follows. That's kind of historically accurate, but they feel it's been added. It just kind of stops. And it kind of stops. Now, learned people say they think that Mark stopped it there deliberately because he wants us to engage with the risen Jesus and the resurrection story. So maybe this morning, you're watching online, maybe you're sitting here today, this is a moment not only just to hear a historical reading, but actually for you and for me to engage in this story. The story is continuing. But it wasn't what they're expecting. The reason that I mentioned about the women that were at the tomb, I read the verse before, is that they saw the place where Jesus was buried. Yeah, they're not expecting a resurrection. I know Jesus told them, but for whatever reason, their minds were dull. They just didn't get it that Jesus was going to rise again. Yeah, have you ever been in that moment? I've had a few moments when I've been terribly surprised. But I wasn't thinking of a moment where I've been terribly surprised. I was thinking of one of my aunts. I originally come from the Republic of Ireland. I'm from Dublin. Top of the morning to you. It's not a very convincing accent, is it? So, I moved here when I was quite young. But all my family are from Ireland. A lot of my mum's sisters work for the national airline. It's called Aer Lingus. And I was thinking back to a story. This was a number of years ago, where one of my aunts, she worked for Aer Lingus on the kind of ground staff. She wasn't a flight crew. She worked on the ground. And a man came into the office she was working in, and she's at the desk there, and he's quite agitated. And here's what happens. She says, "Can I help you?" And here's what he does. He pulls a gun out and points it at her head. So she's been quite nice. She said, "Can I help you?" I think she said it nicely. His response wasn't a good response. He points the gun at her head. What do you do in that? It's a moment of surprise, isn't it? What would you do in that moment? Obviously, this is a number of years ago. Now, security is much tighter. But back in the day, it wasn't like that. So he pulls the gun, points it at her head. This is what she said. "Don't you point that thing at me." I kind of wish I was her. "Don't you point that thing at me." So he didn't. And then he was arrested. What's that about? And obviously she was quite shaken by it. You see, the women that we've just heard read, what are they expecting? My lovely Aunt Alice, she wasn't expecting a gun to be pulled on. What were they expecting when they went to the tomb? What were they expecting? That they saw it. They were the ones, the women in the New Testament narratives about Jesus. They're the heroes. They're the heroes. In a world that was so misogynistic, so man-centered, so man-favored, they were the heroes. If you want to know somebody that has brought emancipation and, fought for women's rights, just look at the life of Jesus. It's fascinating that every single gospel account, it's the women who were the people that actually were the first to experience and recognize and meet the risen Lord Jesus. And they were the heroes. Why were they the heroes? They were the ones that it says in the Gospels, they provided out of their own purses for Jesus and the disciples. They financed them as they spread the good news. Why were they the heroes? They were the ones, actually, when all of Jesus' 12 disciples fled. Peter, yes, denied him, probably the most grievously. But they all fled. John stayed at a distance, but pretty much they all fled. And yet the women were there at the crucifixion. Who was there when Jesus was buried? When Nicodemus who was there? It says the women were there. Who were the ones that went out of their own pockets and bought the spices? It was the women. Who were the ones who, out of their love and devotion for Jesus, on that first day of the week, went to the tomb? It was the women. But they weren't expecting what happened. Like my Aunt Alice wasn't expecting what happened. They weren't expecting it. I know you're watching online. Sometimes family moments like this are incredibly difficult. As we remember family members, loved ones, children, parents, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, best friends, who maybe a year ago they were here with us. Incredibly painful. I had some of you know this, I had an interesting upbringing in some ways. My dad was quite violent, quite abusive, quite controlling, quite difficult. And not too many years ago, he was close to death. And when I came to know Jesus, the risen Jesus, I forgave my dad. And then I realized he hadn't changed, and then I forgave him again because he was obnoxious. I remember going to see him, and I said, he was just so obnoxious to me. I said to God, I am never going to see him again. Life is not straightforward, is it? And yet somehow in God's kindness, in those final moments of his life, I was with him. And I held his hand, and I ran my fingers through his hair. And I said, Dad, I love you. And he hated me being a Christian. And I said, Dad, can I pray with you? And I prayed my best, Dad, come to know Jesus prayer. I said, God, right now, my dad's asking me to pray for him. I pray that he would know that if he turns to you, the risen Jesus, he can have life in all its abundance. I pray that my dad here, he was grasping my hand. I pray that he would know the love that you have for him. In spite of his life, I pray he'd know forgiveness. Joy has a name. Forgiveness has a name. Kat did that beautiful spoken word thing. Love has a name. Hope has a name. I'm praying my best prayer. And it was the middle of the night, and he said, Kieran, you need to go. So I got on my motorbike and rode home. It was a hospital in London. And we got a phone call the next morning. Mr. Dunn, you need to come. And we got there. And the women at the tomb, this is the moment, isn't it? And I know for some of you sitting here today, it's so hard, isn't it? The funny thing is that when it wasn't funny in one sense, but when I got to the hospital, there's my dad, and the nurse said, do you want some moments with him? Because he died before we got there. And they hadn't put him in a side room or anything. He was just there. You know what hospital's like. It was absolutely packed. So I'm there. There's a curtain here. And there's another man probably lying in his bed there who I guess was in his 90s. And he had his radio on full blast. I'm trying to have this moment with my dad. And it's a program about Elvis impersonators. Return to sender. Oh, the irony. But let's say, for instance, I turn up at the hospital and the staff are looking slightly agitated because they say, Mr. Dunn, I don't know what's happened, but there's been some sightings of your dad walking down the corridor. We thought he was dead, but he's alive. How would that be? But here, this is what we're encountering. We're encountering some ordinary women who their last expectations this is going to happen. It says on the very first day of the week, so the Jewish calendar, the Sabbath, the holy day was the Saturday. This would have been on the Sunday, our Sunday, the first day of the week. They went to the tomb not expecting Jesus to be alive. The first day of the week. It's interesting, the parallel. Even at the beginning of the Bible, it says, on the first day of the week, God started creating. And here we read on the first day of the week, the new creation that comes because of Christ rising from the grave. And they're stunned. On the way there, they're just being practical. Who's going to roll the stone away? They reckon maybe it would take 20 grown men to just about be able to move the stone. One of the codexes, the original kind of manuscripts from that time, said it would take 20 men to just about move the stone. But in some ways that stone represents, doesn't it represent life for us? There's a finality there with that stone. There's an ending. But you see, Easter's not about the finality of death that follows life. Easter isn't about the stone that's static. It's about the rolling stone. The stone was rolled away. In other accounts, I think Matthew's account, it says there was an earthquake and an angel of the Lord came down. The Roman soldiers were terrified and became like dead men. Oh, the irony. The ones that were alive became like dead ones. The one that was dead became alive. The angel sat on the stone. And in some accounts it says there was one angel, some say there was many angels. And that's the brilliant thing about it. They're all slightly different, because if you have a witness to any kind of incident, accident, whatever, lawyers would be super suspicious if all the accounts of the witnesses were exactly the same. It would be like somebody's gone at them. So they're all slightly different. But this angel's sitting there. The women peer in. They think, where's Jesus? They're confused. And he utters these immortal words. You're looking for Jesus, the Nazarene. In other words, a human person who was crucified. Jesus, the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He's not here. Look, that's where they laid him, dudes. That's the place where they laid him. And then they say this, or the angel says this. He said, he's talking about Jesus. He's going ahead of you to Galilee. He's going ahead of you to Galilee. So go tell his disciples to meet him there. And what I love about this is, you see, here we are, we're in this place this morning, or if you're watching, on YouTube, we're here, but what does Galilee represent? We see this happened in Jerusalem, but they're all from Galilee. It's a bit like they're saying, well, they're all from like Burgess Hill. They're all from like Haywards Heath. They're all from Cookfield. They're all from London. They're all from Ipswich. They're all from Glasgow. That Jesus goes ahead of you to the place where you'll be later today. It's not about being in church. He goes ahead of you. He goes ahead. See, the risen Jesus, why are we sort of doing this and celebrating this today? You see, this isn't for a building. This isn't for a service. The risen Lord Jesus says, come on, Kieran, let's go on an adventure. Let's walk together. I will walk with you through your pain. I will help you to reconcile some of the things that have happened in your life. He is the God of hope. He is the God of joy. He is the God of peace. He will help you forgive when you think forgiveness is not possible. He will. He will help you to forgive and go on forgiving. He will help you to know forgiveness in a way that will release you from all shame, that will release you from all guilt. The angel said this, you are looking for Jesus. You're looking for Jesus. Now, come on, be honest with me. Are you looking to rid yourself of those mistakes in the past? Are you looking to be free from guilt? Are you looking to have shame completely removed from your life? Are you looking for some purpose and meaning in life? Are you looking that when you see a loved one die, you contemplate your own death and think, is that it? Is that the end? They're lowered into the grave? No, you're looking beyond, because something in our hearts, the Bible says God has set eternity in the hearts of men and women, longs that there is more than this. You're looking for Jesus, the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He's not here. And he wants to take you by the hand. He says, I'm going to come with you into your everyday situation. So if you're facing a court case, if you look to him, he will take your hand. He will come with you into that courtroom. If you're facing redundancy, he will walk with you through that. If you're in an abusive relationship, he will walk with you through that and help you to break free from that. If you're just wound up and angry, he will help you to be released from your anger. He will come with you to the everyday, to your Galilee. Where's your Galilee? Is it up in the city? Is it signing on? Is it desperately not trying to reach for another bottle of vodka? He'll meet you there. How do I know that? Because, I sit here as somebody who is broken, so broken, so broken. And yet I know Jesus has put me back together again. Do you know, he's put me back together. And I've still got the scars. I still walk with a limp, literally. Yeah, he'll do that for you. He'll do that for you. Do you want me to prove it? What's the message the angel gave to the women? Go, tell my disciples and Peter, I'm going ahead of you into Galilee. Go, tell my disciples and Kieran, I'm going ahead of you into Galilee. Put your name there. Because actually, we've all turned our back on Jesus in some ways. Peter was the one that denied him 3 times. Servant girl questioned him. Peter was the one that says, I don't know the man. It's nothing to do with me. And it says in the Gospels that Jesus said that you'll deny me 3 times before the cock crows. And when the cock crowed, Jesus, who was bound and being tried, looked straight into Peter's eyes, didn't say anything. He just looked across at him. And it says that Peter went out and wept bitterly. Look, we've all been there. You might be there now. Go, tell my followers and Jesus, and Peter, I'm going ahead of you into Galilee. There's a way. There's a way that you can come to him or come back to him. There's nothing you've done that is too bad. If you'd said yes to Jesus at some point in your life, there's nothing that you've done that is not forgivable. If you've never said yes to Jesus and said, I want you in my life, there's nothing that you have done that is not forgivable. Believe me, because I've done some things. I know this from my own experience. Encouraging thing is, he'll restore you. He'll fill you with joy. He'll fill you with peace. He will. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to pray. And let's not mince about. Look, life's too short. Let's not mince about. This life is short. I've done my very best to try and introduce Jesus to you. Now it's your turn. You know what I said? The gospel suddenly ends. The women fled, terrified, bewildered, amazed, filled with joy, yet afraid. Now it's your turn.